Hi guys. Happy Saturday. Hope you guys have enjoyed your weekend. I announced this last minute, but I'm hoping somebody or one of you can join me. If you are on, go ahead and let me know so I can go ahead and start. As you can tell, today we're going to be discussing shadow work. This actually came up in conversation earlier this morning with someone who's on a spiritual journey and has had a heck of a time figuring out and processing and everything. So if you guys are here, just let me know in the chat box so I can see it come up. But yeah, definitely shadow work is definitely something that, hi Zara, awesome, okay. Oh, hi Alicia, awesome, okay, you guys are rolling in, that's awesome, okay. So it's definitely, a lot of people when they talk about their shadow, they talk about a hidden self. It's, these are repressed emotions, these are who we are and how we were conditioned, equates to a shadow self. Let me turn this off. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just go into the definition of what shadow means on the etymology. You guys know I'm really big on like finding root words and things like that. So the shadow means a darkened area, shade, anything unreal, a ghost, imitation, copy. Okay, it's also a dark image cast by someone or something. When interposed between an object or a source of light. So makes sense, right? When we're in the dumps or we're going through something, we often go into a depression. That is just one of the many effects when you are avoiding doing work with your shadow self. So shadow work is actually processing all of those emotions and everything that we've repressed, it comes up. It shows up in the way that we act around people. It shows up in the way how we treat other people, how we react to certain situations. That is our shadow self making itself known, especially when we're being punks to people or not nice, okay? So this is an exploration of our inner demons. It's an exploration of who we are, that hidden self, that person that wants to come out, that's been neglected for many, 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 many years. And oftentimes we think shadow work is bad, but it's actually a way to confront your issues, okay? A lot of psychiatrists will use this, psychologists. I know I use shadow work a lot. I don't tell you that that's what it's called when I have you doing a forgiveness letter, but that is shadow work. Whenever any kind of emotion is involved, it's shadow work. It's really just allowing us to uncover all of those repressed emotions, okay? So far, so good. Everybody keeping up? All right. So it's an exploration of our inner demons. A lot of times shadow work or will open up this, you don't learn about shadow work until you've gone through probably something really heartaching, heartbreaking, something massive, some kind of trauma, some kind of just really something that made you feel a certain way, okay? A lot of the times it's gonna show up, anger, guilt, shame, disgust, grief, okay? So any traumatic experience that happened to us, it will make itself known. But what do we do automatically? We want to slap a feel good sticker over it and call it a day, right? We're just like, nope, that didn't happen. I don't want to deal with it. We're good. So before we go into shadow work, anybody who's going through any kind of trauma knows that we really got to work on self-love. And self-love, that's another video, but we got to get to a point in our self-esteem and in our journey where we aren't going to spiral further down that emotional scale, okay? Shadow work is not pretty. It is not pretty. It is not fun. I did a lot of shadow work. A lot of you know me. I've gone through a lot of things. I do believe it first kicked off when my dad went to jail, or what he went to jail for, and who was involved in everything like that. And that kicked me off into a spiritual journey. Not only that, but then I had a friend go to jail for murder. So I had two loved ones in the span of 3 months, 6 months, go to jail at the same time for two very different things. But it spiraled me out. And not only that, I had just gotten a divorce in June, gotten into a relationship, and then let alone it ended up being an abusive relationship where I realize now how much I changed throughout that relationship, but where I had to find myself back to self-love and loving myself. So we got to remember love is a choice, and you choose how you tend to express it. Now, everyone has a shadow self. Everyone. I don't care if you're a good person or you consider yourself a good person. Everyone has a shadow self. Make sense? That's why Peter Pan is so desperately looking for his shadow. He knows it's a very important part of him. Okay. I want you guys to go ahead and go back and look at that part. That's my interpretation of he needs a shadow. Why? Because it allows you to be your authentic self. Once you have confronted your inner demons or that devil inside you or that possession, you know that the shadow self is important. Okay. So when or where was it formed? So our shadow selves are formed as of childhood. It's part of our social conditioning of how we're supposed to be politically correct, how we're supposed to act in public, how we're supposed to be with people acting or behaving. Okay. So as a child, we get conditioned in a certain way to act a certain way, to say hi to an uncle, to an aunt, to somebody that, you know, whatever the case may be. And as a child, maybe you don't want to do that. So you start repressing certain emotions at childhood. Okay. And our social conditioning, whether we were raised in a church or religion or dogma, or maybe we didn't have any. Maybe we were just raised by some really crappy parents, or maybe we weren't raised by our parents, but were raised by grandparents or uncles or aunts, or maybe we were in the system. You know, going from foster care to foster care. All of these are ways that our shadow self is pretty much that's where it comes from. And then as we grow older, we start taking on certain personality traits, right? That we think or we claim as are who we are as a person. But really what it is, it's a mask. That's why you see me it's a mask, okay? It's a mask, it's us not representing who we truly are. So our shadow self is that person or those repressed emotions that want to come out and want to be, they're here to teach us a lot of lessons, okay? So healing takes time, you guys. It's not a pretty process. There's a lot of emotions that get released. There's a lot of coming to a lot of realizations in how you project yourself out to the world. Because when we repress our shadow self, we're walking around living a lie, okay? I remember when I did a blog on spiritual bypassing because someone questioned my integrity or what that looked like according to them, because I was a spiritual person, okay? There has to be balance. That's why the light and the dark exist. That's why there's the good and the evil, you know, that's that duality. So having the shadow self or the shadow work, okay, you have to do the work in order to bring balance into all this love and light that we've been pushed on by the spiritual community, or maybe even by church or wherever you're from, right? There has to be a balance. So in order for there to be good, there has to be this shadowy self. I believe it was a meme or a blog that I saw one day that said, the devil showed up while I was meditating. So instead of running from it or rebuking it like we've been taught, because we have been taught to rebuke all those negative thoughts, right? You ask it, you invite it in and see what it has to teach you, okay? A lot of the times when we're going through a spiral of depression or a spiral of grief, anger, guilt, all the things I said earlier, this is when our shadow self is so right there to teach you. It's right there. You're there to learn from it, okay? If you guys have any questions, make sure you're letting me know. I can see them on the chat, okay? So our ego is developed as we grow up. Our ego is to protect ourselves. It puts us into fight or flight mode, okay? And there's really only two places that we operate out of, either fear or love. And when our shadow self presents itself, it's presenting itself to teach us. to show us that what happened to us didn't necessarily happen to us, it happened for us. And it's up to us to do the shadow work to get through whatever it is that we're going through in order to lead a happier, more authentic life. Okay? Again, it's not pretty. If any of you have actually had sessions with me, I'll do past life regressions. I'll do tarot readings. I will do or assign you books to read. And it's not me, you guys. This is always guidance, right? But it's coming through me, so I'm using me. That forgiveness letter is shadow work. When there is a lot of emotion involved, it's shadow work. If any of you have ever been to Choice Center or taken PSI seminars or anything that has to do with self-development, where they are having you relive an experience and live it at the most intense capacity that you're allowed to, and then not only that, but you're allowed to express yourself in the manner that you didn't get to while it was happening, that's shadow work. Okay, it's really digging deep back into those memories and into those feelings when they first happen. Now, oftentimes our emotions are actually led by the past, not by what's currently happening. So how, why do we want to do this? Well, we want to get to a point in our life where we're not responding or reacting to certain things the way we're used to, okay? Now, some of the things that can happen when you're not paying attention to the shadow self or when the shadow self wants to come out, okay? What happens is you start to lash out on people and your projections, you start to project what you're feeling internally of that shadow self that wants to come out. You start to project it out, okay? So how do we do shadow work? I often say we need to write it out. We need to write whatever feelings. We have to be aware. We have to be aware of how we're responding to our external world, okay? Be aware of how you're responding to the person cutting you off on the road. Be aware of how you're responding to the person in the store asking you to put your mask back on. Be aware of how you're responding and where emotionally you end up storing that in your body, okay? Some of us are like, okay, like I had some guy hound me at the IKEA yesterday, actually, because I pulled my mask down so it wasn't covering my nose. And he came and asked me to put it in. I just looked at him and I said, okay, put it back on. But then I proceeded to watch him. And I guess that was his sole purpose of being in the store. It was to go tell people to put their mask on. He clearly worked there. However, what I'm saying is I watched him and then I responded. I was just like, oh, this is annoying. Like, why? Well, it's because the belief systems we also hold in regards to what's happening in our external world, okay? So the way that I saw that as, wow, he asked me to put my mask back on. Well, I have an issue with having a mask on. If you think about it, a mask is to hide, it's to conceal, it's to not show your true self, okay? And this is being channeled right now. I'm realizing this right now as to why I have such an issue with people walking around wearing masks. Because we already wear masks as it is. 95% of the time, we're avoiding looking bad. We're trying to avoid, we're trying to avoid looking bad and we want to look good. Okay? We're operating out of fear or out of love. That makes sense? So one of the most powerful ways that I do shadow work is through that forgiveness letter. If you guys want a copy of it, I'll make sure, just message me, I'll send you over a copy of the forgiveness letter process. You can be physical, do karate, do a sport, dance, go to the gym, hiking, whatever is going to get your body moving. Now, when you're on these hikes or whatnot, your intention counts a lot. Oftentimes I would go to my studio and set an intention right before I walked in that in this session or in this, my frustration may show up, and that's shadow work. When you're frustrated, when I couldn't get the step, when I couldn't figure out the sequence, when I did it right the first 3 times, and then when they pulled out the camera, all of a sudden I forget the sequence. That's all shadow work to me when you're making yourself very aware and you're paying attention to how it is that you respond. Okay. What is your emotional state? You have to be very conscious and very aware. Okay. Who or what are you giving power to? Because when we blame our emotions on someone else, we're not taking responsibility for our portion in it. And no one can make us feel a certain way unless we allow them to. Okay? That's why everyone says happiness resides within yourself. Well, so does every other emotion. And that's why those demons that come up are part of us. We gotta balance them out. I think it's Rihanna, the song with Eminem that she makes, she's friends with the monsters under her bed. Same concept. You wanna start to talk to these demons, or you wanna start to talk to this darker side or this repressed child of yours. Even as an adult, we get hurt. So how do you question? You question, you question. I would highly suggest that you guys keep a journal. And anytime you guys keep a journal and you guys are recording what's happening, you guys start to notice patterns. I'm really good at catching patterns, by the way. So you guys start to pay attention to the patterns. And then you start to realize, oh, wow, when this person is in my face, this and this and this happens. Or when I encounter someone who did this, I remember so-and-so. This is how you know that those shadowy selves are coming up, all right? So remember what I said earlier. It's also, if we go into what shadow is, there was a word in there that said shade. Have you ever heard of people throwing shade at each other? Well, I wish it was in the sense that this describes it, which is partial darkness, protection, or shelter. When we're throwing shade at someone, we're not necessarily doing, any of that. But it's shadow and shade is intertwined in the way they explained it here. But think about it. When you want to be in the shade, you want to be protected. You want to be hidden of something external attempting to harm you. Now, in this case, shadow work is not meant to harm you. We've been taught. That's enough. We've been taught to ignore all these parts of ourselves. So it's really, we've got to uncover all those repressed emotions. Next time you're getting angry or frustrated, think about it. And then I want you to go back to the time that you last felt that way. Say you were frustrated. I was frustrated at IKEA because I couldn't find a certain shelf that I wanted. And then I was like, all right, am I frustrated in this moment with this? Yes. But where is this frustration originating from? When's the last time that I felt this way? It had nothing to do with the shelf and everything to do with somebody I wasn't communicating appropriately with, or they weren't, according to me, appropriate. Okay. So then I realized that my frustration has nothing to do with the shelf or me not finding it. It has to do with this other thing that's going on. So a lot of the times how we project out into our external world is our shadow self trying to come up and saying, hey, we need to do this shadow work. Write it out, because when you write it out, it comes from the unconscious or being in your head, in your body. Writing it out puts it on a conscious state because it's flowing through, the energy is flowing through your hand and being put now down on paper. And I always say, whenever there's a strong energy or emotion and you're sobbing or crying or there's a lot coming up, I always say burn the letter or burn this stuff, okay? Hi, sis. Because you don't want to keep that energy around. You want to actually get rid of it. So I would highly suggest that you guys check out the old blog on my page where it's, I'll reblog it, but it's spiritual bypassing and integrity, something like that. And then the other thing is the forgiveness letter or the forgiveness work, because that's all shadow work. You guys have any questions? Any questions? I really want to tend to keep these at 20 minutes just so I know I have a little bit of ADD sometimes and I can't stay engaged unless it's something that I'm really into. So I'm hoping this helped. I'm hoping this answered some of your questions, why it's important to do shadow work, because if not, we're going to project all that crap on everybody else, okay? Where it came from, your childhood, growing up to your ego self, how it shows up as anger, guilt, shame, disgust, grief, okay? Who has a shadow? Everybody has a shadow, everybody, I don't care. Go stand outside at 12 noon and I bet you have a shadow. But that shadow is also internal, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I'm hoping that this helped. I'm hoping that this allows you to realize that when these demons show up, I'm calling them demons. You can call them whatever you want. When these demons show up, they're here to teach you a lesson, because life is happening for you, not to you. All right, you guys. I will see you soon. Take care.